everybody, welcome back to Final Resonance TV and episode number 2 of Van Halen Stories. Today my guest is Damon Johnson, who I've known for 30 years, I think. It's something like that, right? Insane, right? And Damon is, has some great stories about Van Halen because he toured with him in 1995 on the Balance Tour. He was a guest up at 5150 Studios. He wrote and recorded 2 songs with Sammy Hagar on the post-Van Halen album, Marching to Mars. He interviewed Eddie Van Halen for Rip Magazine in 1995, and on the 1995 Balance Tour, he came home and played his hometown arena in Birmingham, Alabama, which I've really never talked to you about that in detail, so I want to talk to you about that a little bit. And that's a tiny part of Damon's huge resume, so y'all need to check out the interview that Damon and I did 3 years ago now, which is about an hour and a half ago through all of his different stages of his career. So check that out. He's been filling in with Leonard Skinner this last week. So that's another thing he can add to his list. And he's got a new album out, Battle Lessons. And I have been listening to it for a week and a half. Here's what I'm going to tell you about it. I love it. And one of the things that hit me right off is that, like Van Halen 1, the way that this comes across on my car stereo is like I'm with you back in 1989. It brought me right back because it's so hard to capture some live performance like they did with Van Halen 1 and make it feel like you're there, right? And that made me feel like I was there again. It was so weird for me.
I really appreciate you saying that, Jeff. That was without a doubt absolutely the goal. My longtime collaborator, Jim Troglin, he and I had 3 or 4 things cooking that I was really excited about. And they all had, the tempo was up, a lot of energy. It had big riffs at the top and another riff would happen in the middle. And I was just like, man, what if I just made a 37-minute badass hard rock record that 19-year-old Damon Johnson would have been listening to next to Van Halen and Judas Priest and Aerosmith and Thin Lizzy and all that other stuff. And I feel like that's what I did, man. So you just reinforced that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. The production, just the way it hits you, like the Can't Clap Any Louder, the second song, the way that the production and it hits you just like you're there. It's hard to capture that. Everybody, I think all musicians know this, but most people don't realize that it's so hard to get what you have in a room down through a recording interface out through a set of speakers and still sound like what you want it to sound like.
Yeah, man. Well, I was so fortunate, back in the late 70s, early 80s, the best rock producer in the world maybe was Ted Templeman.
Right.
And I feel like the best rock producer in the world in 2021 is my friend Nick Raskulinecz, and his resume speaks for itself. So it was just a thrill, man, for Nick to get excited about the demos when I played him the songs. He was immediately like, wow, Damon, you are not messing around, man. These are great songs. Wow. And, he carved out some time so we could get in. So it's a proper record, Jeff. It's a shame we can't, let's just say this. If Brother Kane could have followed up Wishpool with a record like this, we'd still be a band to this day, Right. It's that strong of a record.
Yeah, it's a great record. So you guys go check out. I'm going to put the links in the description for all your socials and your DamonJohnson.com where they can get the music and check out the videos. There's a bunch of videos out already, too, for that. There's, the Can't Clap Any Louder video and the Battle Lessons video. And I've seen all the great stuff, too. Great videos. Jared Pope.
Thank you, brother.
Jared Pope, great drummer. And your new bass player, player's name is, tell me his name.
Yeah, Robbie Harrington. Okay. And man, it's a lot of fun to be in a power trio now. And, I feel like I have a lot of control over the dynamics. And, I don't know that there was ever any master plan if that's what I wanted to do, but it's just kind of where I found myself. And I'm really proud that I took that leap. And, that's why I came up with the name, the Get Ready. Mm-hmm. My manager, Kevin, he gets credit for that name, and I loved it right away. And it's like, yeah, man, the Get Ready can be like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Whoever we want to tour with that year will be in the Get Ready. So
I got you.
You never know, man. The Get Ready might be a 6-piece next time you see it. So,
Well, I'm sorry I missed it a few weeks ago, but I was out playing myself. But I caught you in the parking lot for a second before you left town. So let's jump into the Van Halen thing. One of the things, with you is like I said, I don't like your very first. Well, let's talk about our connection with Van Halen because that was really where it started. I saw you playing Van Halen on stage in 1988 when you were with Split the Dark. And I was like, I got to meet the guitar player. So I went and met you. And then a couple years later, you came in Music Alley, where I worked. And you were playing Hot for Teacher in front of me on the guitar. And I think you were playing a little bit of Sachi Boogie, tapping and stuff. But you were doing this acoustically in front of me. And I immediately knew then, I was going, that's the Van Halen guy that I met. Right? So I immediately made that connection that you were the Van Halen guy. But anyway, you were playing those licks from Van Halen before there was anywhere to find those to learn them. Where were you learning them at? By ear?
You know something, Jeff? I was obsessed with Eddie Van Halen at a level that is really hard to quantify. I was really lucky, man, that I grew up around the guitar. My dad played a little bit. He had a younger brother that played a lot on acoustic, just a great, great acoustic guitar player and a singer. So when I started falling in love with rock, all the bands that we all were into in the mid 70s, I was in the 8th and 9th grade in junior high school. It kind of came to me pretty quick. Everything from the Doobie Brothers to Ted Nugent to Bad Company to Lynyrd Skynyrd to, all of that. Came to you quick
because your family was playing in front of you and you kind of picked that up through that?
Yeah. My uncle John, it just looked effortless when he played. And he was more about singing a song. He could sing all those classic crooners like Ed Ames and Marty Robbins, and just an amazing voice. And I don't know, man, just a lot of music. And then there was a guy that lived up the street from me. He was older, and they had a garage band, and they used to rehearse out in his dad's. They had a carport extension off to the side of the house. And I never really talked to them, but they were cool for me to I'd ride my bicycle up there and just sit and watch and listen to them play. Sorry, man, I lost you for 1 second.
Okay.
So I really took to the guitar pretty quick. When Van Halen hit, clearly, man, he was doing something that none of us had ever heard before. It was beyond anything that we were trying to learn at home, Kiss songs and Ted Nugent songs. It just, it sounded like science fiction. It sounded like a spaceship. So I think over the years, being in music stores and just being obsessed with music, you'd stumble across one guy that could sort of play, the tapping at the start of Dance the Night Away. And when I saw what he was doing, like an octave above the chord fragment, he wasn't playing it right, but I didn't know that's how Eddie did it. So I immediately went home and grabbed my guitar, oh, that's what he's doing. And I took the time to really pick out the notes. Of course, by the time 1984 came out that record just exploded, and with MTV and everything. So yeah, Hot for Teacher was another kind of measuring stick for any of us that profess to be steeped in Eddie Van Halen guitar playing. It was, the debut record, of course, had Eruption, but it had also On Fire, and then the second record had Spanish Fly. It had that great solo and Somebody Get Me a Doctor. Third record, Women and Children First. So many great things on there. Fair Warning, of course, Mean Street, that guitar tone and, the way the intro of that happened. I would just stumble over that stuff. I never felt like I was playing it right, Jeff. I feel like you're being fairly kind to be like, oh, that guy's nailing it. I know I was never nailing it, but I was definitely in the ballpark, and then what it did is it just made me a lot more confident with the other songs that I was covering. for instance, in Split the Dark, or, you know, songs that I was starting to write myself. It definitely was starting. Van Halen chord fragments and things like that were starting to pepper my songwriting that I was beginning to do on my own.
Right. So going into your first exposure to Van Halen, what was the first time you ever heard it?
First time I heard Van Halen was in 1978, my very first garage band. My drummer's dad got us a gig at this, it's like a Dairy Queen. You know, it was like a mom and pop ice cream parlor.
Right.
And so they let us come and set up and play. Like, you know, we knew how to play 6 or 7 songs. I don't know. But there was this cool guy there, you know, who's like a senior in high school, maybe a junior in, a freshman in college. But he had a little PA system, and he brought that PA for us to, you know, be able to sing through. And so at the end of the night, we're loading our stuff into that van. Man, his name escapes me. His last name was Bell. It'll come to me in a second. But we're loading in the little speaker cabinets, and he goes, "Hey man, have you guys heard Van Halen?" And we all went, "No." "What? Who is he?" And they're like, "No, it's a band. It's these 2 brothers and these 2 other guys. Check this out." And Jeff, I'll never forget, man, as long as I live, looking up through the back of his Chevy van. You know, it had the shag carpet on the walls, and, you know, his right hand pushing that 8-track tape into the tape deck on that van. And, you know, Running with the Devil came out of the speakers. And instantly, the tone of the guitar, just the tone.
Yeah.
You know, because in Running with the Devil, Eddie wasn't really doing any flashy trickery. It was just an amazing song that sounded like nothing we'd ever heard.
Right. And
then that guy goes, "Oh, you dig that?" And we were like, "Yeah, that's amazing." He's like, "Well, check this out." and then of course, Eruption happened. And listen, there are no words that I can say right now to better describe the impact of that song than you've heard, you know, 100 other people say. It was just mind blowing and life altering. Right. So the really weird thing is shortly after that, I moved from South Alabama up to Northeast Alabama. As you and I've talked about, a little town called Geraldine, and that's where my mom grew up. And so I started my 10th grade year in high school at Geraldine. And it wasn't until we moved that I was finally able to go and buy my own copy of Van Halen 1. And by that time, Van Halen 2 was out. So I bought them both at the same time. And, you know, very quickly, man, because of my guitar ability, I was able to make some friends early, because it's a tiny town, Jeff. Literally, you know, I don't think Geraldine has 5,000 people in it.
Still,
I mean, my graduating class had like 63 kids in it. It was just super small. Right. But anyway, very quickly, you know, people were talking about this new kid in town that was the Van Halen guy. I was the Van Halen guy. Mm-hmm. So I guess in a way, man, it did a lot for my confidence, and it definitely helped me socially, you know, to make friends and, right, you know, get attention from girls. And, you know, and shortly after that, I got my license. I put another band together up there. And, you know, the next big Van Halen event for me, without a doubt, was going to see them live for the first time in 1980.
I was going to say that was 1980. So yeah, this is what we're going to, the 1980 concert. You didn't see them before that at all?
No, I didn't. They were never around that I had a chance to see them, but it's a pretty biblical story, Jeff. All those guys from that band that I had originally in South Alabama, Monroeville was the name of that town.
Okay.
So it was my buddies Mac and Troy and Alan and Pat. One of the guys, I think it was Alan, had an aunt and uncle that lived in Birmingham. So my mom or my dad were cool enough to drive me down to Birmingham. The guys drove up to Birmingham, and we met at that house. And then someone took us all to the concert at the Von Braun Civic Center. I'm sorry, Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center.
Right.
Let us out of the car. And that, for whatever reason, man, for that particular show, even though it was general admission on the floor, they had seats on the floor. And I'm sure they did that to keep people from crushing each other. Right. You got to remember, man, this was right after that tragedy in Cincinnati with the Who.
Right.
Remember those people died and they got crushed, and it was just
like 18 people. There's a lot of people.
It was terrible. It was terrible. So the floor of the Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center was set up with chairs. Well, somehow, man, the door that they opened to let us in, we ran down the stairs, man, and we were able to get third row in those chairs, stage left, directly in front of Eddie's microphone.
Right on.
And I don't remember or care who the opening band was. I can't remember to this day. I'm sure I could look it up online somewhere, but man, those guys came out and hit the stage, and it's like my brain just opened, and it was like, man, it was probably 75, 80 minutes of just pure joy and energy. And the very last song they played was Ain't Talking About Love. And by that time, man, the whole crowd is just worked up into a frenzy. So me and my friends, we'd been standing in the chairs. Well, then, Jeff, we stood up on the backs of the chairs. So we were even taller. We had our arms around each other to keep each other from falling off.
Lord.
Well, David Lee Roth comes over with his mic stand in the outro, the big, hey, and he shoved that mic stand right out in our faces. And, we've all got our arms around each other and I don't mind telling you, brother, they walked off stage, the house lights came up. I don't know if I've ever told this story, man, but I sat back down in my chair. I put my face in my hands and I wept. I literally was in tears. And it was like, what the fuck was that? What just happened?
Right.
What just happened? And I remember looking at Troy and Mac and the guys, and I said, I don't know what it's going to take, but I want to do that for the rest of my life, whatever it takes.
Right on, man.
Changed my life. My life.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. That's,
I did that myself, but it was only, I saw Don Kirshner's rock concert, and it was the Fair Warning Tour videos, and it was Unchained. I just happened to flip it on one night, and there it was, dude. And I was like, that is what I want to do right there, whatever that is. So yeah,
man.
A lot of people had that experience with Van Halen where it's just a light switch kind of thing.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, there's always been great music, and there were so many great bands, but Van Halen had a fun component that did not exist anywhere else previously.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sure.
Rock music in the beginning was about fun, Elvis and the Beatles, and then of course we all know about how rock and roll grew and shape shifted and developed and evolved, and there was a lot of those bands that came before Van Halen that I love very much, and I still listen to those bands, and they certainly were an influence, but there was nothing like Van Halen before and maybe ever since. There was certainly a lot of copycat bands of Van Halen.
Sure.
But no one ever.
Yeah, Van Halen started a whole new thing from 78 on.
Yeah, but none of those bands ever achieved the level of songwriting quality that Van Halen maintained throughout all those records. Nobody.
Right on. I totally agree with you. So what I've never asked you is your favorite song, your favorite album, and your favorite solo on all the albums. On any album.
Yeah, man. I gotta give a vote for "I'm the One" off of the first album. You know, man, I don't know if I told you this, Jeff, but when Ed passed away, like so many of the rest of us, man, you know, I just did a real kind of my own personal celebration of his life. And all I listened to for a month was Van Halen records, right. Just nothing else, you know? And so I revisited some of those songs as far as picking up my guitar and playing along. And I put in a little time, man, on I'm the One.
Right.
And I couldn't nail it right now. Like if you said go, I'd have to like, but man, for a week, for about 10 days there, brother, I nailed it. I could drop a needle on the record. I could play every lick on it for the first time in my whole life. And it was, you know, it was kind of like my tribute to him. It's like I had a purpose. It's like, you know what, this is how I'm going to celebrate this guy that meant so much to me and that continues to mean so much to me. Sure. So, I don't know that I'd ever feel confident enough to perform it like with my band. Like, who the hell's going to sing it in my trio? You can't play and sing that
no way.
at the same time.
No, brutal.
So,
right?
But yeah, man, I love I'm the One. I love Somebody Get Me a Doctor. Oh man, I wish I'd have thought to kind of look at some.
I know one thing that you had posted about was the solo to Out of Love Again.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I love that solo too. That's why I remember that.
You know, for all the different bands that I've had the good fortune to be a part of, big and small, you know, you always do a sound check. So when they're ready to hear the guitar, I'll play some bar chords and kind of get the low end. You know, this is what it sounds like when I'm playing some chunky rhythm. And then for what my lead sound is going to be, my go-to lick is always those opening 8 notes of that solo.
Yeah.
You know,
that overband, the big overband with the.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely one of his best and definitely one of his most memorable.
But no tapping, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. You know, it's weird, man. You were talking about seeing me play for the first time in Split the Dark. You know, for 10 years there, man, I was the Van Halen Steve Vai guy. I had a couple of homemade guitars with a Floyd on it and one pickup and different colors and just all that stuff. Well, I took those guitars with me when I was a part of that band Witness in '88. And then the band after that was the Delta Rebels in Memphis. And that band in that moment, I decided to go a different path, you know, and I really and literally put away those Floyd Rose guitars kind of forever. And right. I never took them back out.
Right.
I went back to my Les Paul, and those were important developmental years for me, 89, 90, 91, because of course that led up to Brother Kane. And, you know, man, I'm really proud of what we achieved in Brother Kane with our sound and our songs. Mm-hmm. And there's no question, man, that there was not a place in that band and that music for that kind of guitar, or certainly that kind of guitar playing.
Right.
I was never ashamed of, you know, that in any way, but clearly, man, you know, you kind of had to pick a lane. Like, what kind of a band are you? You can't be 6 bands in one. I was trying. I tried a long time, you know, to be this perfect blend of Van Halen, Leonard Skinner, Thin Lizzy, Rush, and Led Zeppelin. It's like, no, that's not possible. You can't do that.
I remember when you did Brother Kane and when that came out, that was a different take for you at the time.
Yeah, man. I mean, Brother Kane was all about the songs. It was all about the songwriting. Mm-hmm. Because of 2 other bands, specifically Guns N' Roses and the Black Crowes, you know, there was still a place for ballsy guitar solos, but it was always on a Les Paul, always on a cool guitar. And, you know, of course, man, by that time,
things have changed.
You know, well, yeah, things had changed a lot. And poor poor Edward, you know, his whole guitar thing had been hijacked by countless imitators and, you know,
Right.
posers, whatever you want to call them, man. Some great players, man. But
right.
you know, Eddie and Roth and Alex and Michael, they already owned that piece of real estate.
Sure.
And you were either going to have to go your own path and be different, or you were just going to be a Van Halen clone.
Sure.
So I didn't want to do that.
And we know what happened to all those clones. They went away. So you didn't say your favorite album? Of those.
Man, I enjoy all the debates and all the conversations with my guitar playing friends and Van Halen loving friends. Yeah. I certainly love Fair Warning.
Right.
It's special. There was definitely a darker vibe there that I love to this day, but it's just hard to top that first record for me. Again, Jeff, as my own career moved forward and became more and more about songwriting, more than just guitar playing, man, it's hard to put any record up next to that first Van Halen record and go, name another record that has as many undeniable great songs than Van Halen 1.
Yeah.
They are finite in number. You can probably count them on two hands. You know,
right.
That's it.
So the production on the album we just talked about with your album, it was just so raw. And so when you listen to the bootlegs, you go, it sounds almost exactly the same.
Yeah, man. You know, that was the exciting reveal about our mutual friend Greg Renoff's great book.
Right.
In particular, the Ted Templeman book, man. That book just floored me.
Yeah,
it was jaw dropping in all the things Ted shared about, you know, seeing the band for the first time, what it took to get the label behind them, and that Ted clearly saw first night, first song, first solo, like, okay, there's John Coltrane, there's I forget who the other trumpet player was.
Yeah.
And then there's this kid, Edward Van Halen, like he knew he was in the presence of once in a lifetime specialness. And so, you know, the fact that he was smart enough, because look, man, Ted is steeped in music theory and he'd produced all kinds of bands and he could bring in string sections or keyboard players, whatever. He was intuitive enough by that point as a producer to say, we're just going to mic these kids up and we're going to press record and we're going to stay out of the way.
Right.
And good on him, man, because it's magic.
It's kind of like AC/DC with Back in Black and Mutt Lange. He's usually all in everything, but I don't think he touched that much, or a lot of the AC/DC stuff. I think he stayed out of the way.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, you know, I love AC/DC too, and they were fortunate that, you know, they made the Highway to Hell album with Mutt, and it was clearly sonically the best record they'd made to that point. So it only made sense that after we lost Bon Scott and then Brian Johnson came on board, and then they showed up with these insanely amazing songs for the follow-up. You know, what a great partnership that was too.
So what other concerts did you go to with Van Halen besides 80? Did you do it every year, or did you just get a few, or up to 92? Because I know by 90, 91, you were so buried in what you were doing. I don't know if you had time to do anything.
Well, I mean, anytime Van Halen came to town, I went to the show. I didn't miss a single tour. All the, you know, the Diver Down tour, of course, 1984, Fair Warning. When Sammy joined the band, I went to all of those shows. So, you know, I guess it was around the time I was in the Delta Rebels that I think my concert going had slowed a little bit, because I was really starting to get focused on, doing my own thing. I mean, I would always go to shows. I mean, it was, I was pretty lucky, you know, because Brother Kane's awesome managers, Conrad Rayfield and Jay Wilson, they, they were part of the concert promotion company.
Right.
In town. Yeah. So they would get me tickets in, to whatever. But by then, I was, my whole thing had grown, and, I probably wasn't listening to Van Halen as much as I used to, but it was always great to, as Brother Kane started to tour and travel, and we would meet other bands, inevitably the guitar player in the band that we were playing with that night, we'd have a conversation about Eddie,
Of course.
And we would Brother Kane, we would sound check sometimes to Ain't Talking About Love, or You Really Got Me, or something like that.
What were any of the concerts you saw after 80 impressed you in any particular way? Any of those Fair Warning or anything after that? 84, the stage show was insane. I was there. Did you go to BJCC on that one or up here?
I did. I went to BJCC.
84.
Yeah, I think I saw them in Huntsville on the Fair Warning tour. Would that be right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a cool thing about where I lived in high school and junior college. It was kind of halfway between Huntsville or Birmingham, so I'd go to either place. But yeah, I mean, again, I just think being so obsessed with Van Halen, and I began to recognize pretty quickly, like, okay, well, this is what it takes, man. You got to write a record, put it out, go on tour.
Right.
Come home, write another record, put it out, go back on tour. And that is the life of, being a musician. And I guess there's no question they showed us the blueprint for that. Like, hey, this is what it takes. We had no way of measuring what a tough life that is, how difficult it is, all the challenges that come with it that have nothing to do with money or ticket sales.
Sure.
Yeah, man, I was obsessed.
So you guys get, Brother Kane gets out there on the road. You get the word that you're going to go in this '95 tour with Van Halen. How many weeks were you out there with them? And we've talked about some of the stories, but are there other things that, the one I heard you tell Jeremy White was the one about the amp, which really was funny.
That's a great story. Yeah, that's my favorite. Well, yeah, Jeff. Our very first show was a one-off. We played with them in Dayton, Ohio. And, we were doing everything we could between our label and our management to try and position ourselves so that we could maybe go out and do more Van Halen dates. You got to remember, brother, 1995 was, it was more transition. It's like Brother Kane was very much the first album, we were kind of part of the classic rock bands.
Yeah.
The stations that played new music, but they also played the new Van Halen, the new AC/DC, the new Robert Plant. That's kind of where we found our home at radio. Mm-hmm. Well, by the time the second record came out, the lines were very specifically drawn between those classic rock new music stations and then the alternative stations that were heavy on Nirvana, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Smashing Pumpkins, on and on. We were never a part of this. We wanted to be, because that's where the younger audience was. That's where the kids were. Mm-hmm. But we were never able to make that transition because our first record was so rooted in classic rock. So we gave up on hoping that, Screaming Trees were going to take us out as support, or, Alice in Chains or somebody like that. Mm-hmm. So we shifted our focus back to classic rock. So top of the heat were two bands, AC/DC and Van Halen. And kudos to my management for helping make that happen. Our booking agent, Adam Kornfeld, such a badass and so respected. And we were fortunate, man, that he loved our music as much as he did. So, they're the guys that made it happen. But there's so many great stories.
So take me through the first day. You told me about meeting Eddie in the dressing room the first day. But take me through that first few days with Van Halen on the road, and what how that was. And what.
Well, it's just we're all like little kids, in, little kids at Christmas time, like when we're pulling into the parking lot of the back of the arena, we're in a van, we're pulling a trailer, and you come around the corner and you see like 5 semis backed into the arena. Immediately, man, your heart rate goes up and you're just like, wow, this is insane. So, our road manager jumps out and finds a place, where we should park. And then we all come piling out. I'm sure we were in, cutoff shorts and combat boots and a flannel shirt. And we probably smelled like we hadn't taken a bath in a day or two for sure. And, you go straight in and go to catering. That's just what you do. You go to find food. And thankfully, their amazing tour manager, Scotty Ross, he came over and introduced himself immediately. And he had already talked to our booking agent and our management. And he came over to me and said, "Hey, Damon, I'm Scotty. I understand that you're a huge fan." And I said, "Scotty, you have no idea, man." He says, "Well, why don't you run down to the dressing room? Eddie's down there right now." And man, I dropped that fork out of my mouth and I took off. He pointed towards some door and I went towards it. And so I looked around, I couldn't find Ed. I poked into 4 or 5 different, doors or curtains and he wasn't there. So I went back to my dressing room and there was Eddie. He had his back to our door and he's like digging around our drink cooler, because we just had like Cokes and Gatorades and stuff like that in there. And I don't know what came over me, Jeff, but I had the confidence to go, "Hey, man, why don't you go to your own dressing room and get your own damn drinks?" And he spun around, and he threw his hands in the air. And he goes, "You must be Damon." And I said, "I am." And he walked straight over to me. He hugged me. He put his one hand on the side of my face and he kissed me on my cheek. And I came to realize that that's his style. That's his way. Those are his mannerisms.
Right.
And we hit it off like old friends, man. We sat down on the couch and, he's like, "Where were you guys last night?" And, we're doing this show tonight and there may be some more later. And it was just, it was like a dream. It was like a dream, man. It was like meeting Jesus.
Right.
It was like one of my cousins who've been very religious their whole life, meeting Jesus Christ. It was the same level for me.
Right.
Meeting Edward Van Halen in person and having a conversation with him.
So the first night you get done with the show and you go back to your room, and what do you think after this all happened?
Well, listen, man, I got to say, and with much gratitude, I was already starting to kind of get my own rhythm about me. I had my own swagger. We'd done a bunch of shows by now. We'd supported Aerosmith and Robert Plant. And, look, man, by the time you've made a second record on a major label, it's great to get excited. And obviously that was a moment I was not going to spoil with trying to be too cool for school.
Right.
But there's no question, man. It's like, look, we were trying to carve out our own niche. We were trying to make our own statement. We wanted to be accepted and respected,
right,
as peers of Van Halen.
Right.
I don't mean as great or as equally talented, but just,
Yeah.
And the guys could tell that. And that's why I think they took such a liking to Brother Kane. They knew we had good songs. They knew we were good guys that were not, we didn't come in there to make a scene or trash the dressing room. We were respectful, but we also were very focused and we were a damn good band and they respected that. And that, to me, that was the greatest kind of exchange between us and them, getting that respect.
So when eventually did you get to ask him questions you wanted to ask him, like things that you'd always wanted to know? Or
Jeff, there's nothing that I could not ask him. I asked him everything. And look, I didn't want to, there's so many questions, man, I already knew the answer to because I'd read every magazine article that had ever come out about it.
Right.
So I don't need to ask him what gauge strings he plays, and I don't need to ask him how he sets up his Floyd or what speakers are in his cabinet. I already knew all that stuff.
But you played his rig, right? Did you get to play it?
I didn't really play through the rig.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
he showed it to you.
He showed me the rig. Totally, man. I mean, if he'd have handed me the guitar and said, "Hey, man, give it a yank," I would have passed out. So I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad he didn't offer it up. But yeah, he showed me the rig, and he was always cool about showing me new guitars. His relationship with Peavey was really blossoming.
Right.
They were having huge success with the Wolfgang guitars, with the 5150 amps.
Yep.
I think they had just made the second version of the 5150. So,
right.
And as you know, man, at the end of the tour, Eddie was so gracious, man. He had an amp and a cabinet sent to my house and
sent you guitar. Sent you a purple guitar.
Yeah, man. Through that relationship, yeah, man.
I remember you played that with John Waite, at least one song.
Yeah, I still have that guitar, man, to this day. I'll never part with that. It's such a great, it sounds great, plays great, stays in tune great.
Right.
But man, just moving forward. So like after the tour, they continued. No, that was the end of the tour. We finished the tour with them because it was in Irvine, California.
Yeah, that there's a video out of that where he thanks you guys. Have you seen that?
No.
There's a video where Sammy's thanking you guys on stage at the end of the Irvine show where he talks about you guys. I may have posted it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, man, please
do. It's a full length version of that show, and at the end, Sammy's just shot. Like his voice is just
gone. I'll tell you this, man. That last show in Irvine, I remember one cool thing we did. We were always super respectful. We didn't want to do anything to get into trouble. But one of the songs that they were not playing on that tour was "Ain't Talking About Love." So that very last show, that last night at that big amphitheater in Irvine Meadows, we played Ain't Talking About Love. And I just remember feeling, a real jolt of anxiety and excitement. Just like, oh my God, are they going to pull the plug? Are they going to, kick us off stage? But I just remember the crowd, they dug it. They almost, the crowd could recognize that we were paying respect to these guys that we'd been on the road with for a while. And, our love for Van Halen was undeniable. I'll tell you two other quick stories, Jeff, and I won't get too long-winded, but man, we opened for them in Denver, Colorado in September, and in a snow, it wasn't a snowstorm, but it was just a shit ton of snow. And we were playing outdoors, like in an outdoor, literally, it's like an open field with some seats, kind of like an amphitheater. The name of the venue escapes me. But man, they had to bring in those giant heaters, those big kind of, they're set up on tripods and they blow the heat, across the stage. Mm-hmm. And right before we went on stage, man, Eddie came by the dressing room and he brought me a pair of gloves. He had gotten these wool gloves and cut the fingers out of them. And he's like, "Hey, Damon, you're going to need these, bro. It's cold. It's really fucking cold out there. So here, So I've got some pictures somewhere, man. We came on stage and we all had on ski masks, like covering our whole face. You could just see our eyes. And I had on those gloves that Ed gave me. And one of the most surreal conversations I had was, we'd been out for a couple weeks, and somebody came to me and said, "Hey, man, the brothers want to see you down at the dressing room." And I went down there, and it was just Eddie and Alex. And I go in and I go, "Hey guys, what's up?" And Al goes, "Come in, Damon. Eddie and I are having a debate. We love your band. You guys are so great." He goes, "You are a great lead singer and you're a great lead guitar player. And we're discussing whether you should get a lead singer and just be the guitar player, or if you should get a guitar player and you just be the singer." And Eddie stood up out of his chair. I remember he threw a cigarette on the ground. He goes, "God damn it, Al. I told you. He's doing fucking fine, just like he is. He should just be just like it is, man." And Al is like, "Well, yeah, but you know, Damon, there's like all the greatest bands. You know, there's a guitar hero and there's a lead singer hero. You know, Led Zeppelin, you know, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Van Halen, you know."
Right.
And Eddie was just like incensed. He goes, "Al, you're such an asshole, man. Have you ever heard of Rush? Have you ever heard of ZZ Top? You ever heard of somebody called the Jimi Hendrix Experience?" So, I had this out of body moment, Jeff, where I'm just like, oh my God.
Right.
How am I in this room right now that these two guys are having an argument about me?
That's so cool. I've heard those stories about them arguing, though, man, over the years. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you what it was like, though, to come home and be with Van Halen.
Oh, it was really heavy, man. Like in the best way. You know, my family came. My first wife, Jamie, you know, she brought all the kids, and I remember we got a great photo taken that night, you know, with the guys, and we got the key to the city of Birmingham
I think
that night. And, you know, there was a big article in the paper. And of course, you know, I talked all about my love of Van Halen. So it was a special moment, man, you know, for everybody, our families, for our managers, you know, who were in Birmingham and from Birmingham. So
right.
that was special. No question.
You know, I was there, right? I was in the upper deck.
Yeah, I remember you telling me you were at that show.
Hold on. I got this. This is been on my wall for a number of years. You see that?
Oh yeah! Wow, man.
See the newspaper article?
Amazing, amazing, man.
Way back. I'm the archivist.
Jeff, that's so cool, brother. That's really fantastic.
Remember, you gave me this. This is the Rip magazine.
There it is.
That you did the interview. Untitled Chapter, it's called.
There it is, man.
So talk about a little bit about that. The interview with him. You got to sit down with him and talk to him and ask him lots of stuff.
Yeah, that happened all because of my new friend at that time, Catherine Turman. She was one of the editors of Rip magazine, and we had also made friends with her business partner, Lon Friend. Lon Friend was kind of the one that started the magazine, and he brought Catherine in. So it was her idea. She reached out to management, and I got on the phone with her one day, and she said, "Hey, Damon, we've got this idea to start this new segment in the magazine every month, where an up and coming star interviews one of their heroes that, you know, maybe they're out on tour with them, or it's a phone conversation or whatever." She says, "Would you like to interview Eddie?" And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I was knocked out that she would even think of me for something like that. It totally made sense. And, you know, I have that audio recording to this day. And
that's cool.
You know, he was so candid. And I think if I were to, I haven't heard it in a long, long time, Jeff, but I do know that it was hard for me to kind of keep from geeking out a little bit.
Right.
It's funny, man. So many people now, you know, this far down the career path, you know, my buddy Rob Arthur, that he plays keyboards for Peter Frampton. I just talked to him yesterday, and he's always like, "Man, you're just the coolest. You're so cool, Damon. How are you so cool?" And I always laugh at him. I go, "Rob, I was not always cool, man. I had to work very, very hard at learning to be cool. And there was no more time, man, that I was trying to be on my P's and Q's than in the 90s during Brother Kane, you know?"
Mm-hmm.
And when I listened to that interview with Eddie, Jeff, I can hear that kid in me. I hear that just fanboy, overly excited, can't believe it's happening, you know.
Right.
I can hear some of that in there, and it's pretty cute. It's pretty cute.
That's great, man. So 5150. you went to 5150. I heard a snippet of this somewhere, and I was like, "What? I didn't know you went to 5150."
Yeah, man. So obviously, a lot of interesting things happened right after the tour ended. It wasn't long after that they had their big falling out. And Sammy left.
Right.
And not a week after the press announced that Sammy had left the band, Sammy Hagar called me at my house and asked me if I wanted to come and write a song with it. So I had already gone to San Francisco, to Marin County, up to Sammy's place. We wrote a couple of things, and then he had me come back, and I played on the recording, and it was amazing. And I love Sam. I mean, to this day, man, Sammy's one of the most soulful human beings I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And then not long after that, I was back in Los Angeles writing some songs for what was going to be the next Brother Kane album, the Wishpool album. Mm-hmm. And when I was on tour, man, Ed gave me a phone number and just said, "Hey, man, when you're in town, hit me up." So I did. I called that number, and his guitar tech, the now famous Matt Brock. Yeah, Brock. Yeah. He answered the phone, and he's like, "Hey, man, yeah." He goes, "Are you in town?" And I said, "Yeah." And I don't even think he asked. It's not like he put me on hold or to check. He just goes, "Yeah, man, listen, we're, come up this afternoon. Here's the address. And, we'll see you when you get here." So I went. I drove up Laurel Canyon and found that address. And, I remember it's this kind of unassuming entranceway. It was covered in, vines and shrubbery and stuff like that. But, there was a button you had, you had to press a button and basically had an intercom. And I said, "Yeah, this is Damon." And the gate opens. And I remember driving that rental car up the driveway, Jeff. And I mean, that was the biggest house I've ever seen in my life. As you're driving, it said, "Hey, the studio's at the end of the driveway. Come all the way up." So as I drove past the house, it's over to my right. I mean, I just felt like I drove 3 blocks worth of house, It's just, wow. It was massive. It was massive. So yeah, I went up to the top, and I got out of the rental car, and Ed very quickly came pulling up on some little 4-wheel thing, that he almost like a golf cart,
right?
But way hipper looking. He came up the driveway, man. Same reception, big hug, kiss on the cheek, and he's like, "Come on in, man. Let me play you something." And they had already been working with Gary. They were way down the path with that, and he played me a couple of songs. I can't remember what they were. I don't even think he told me the title, but I just remember he listens to the playback. It just teeth shattering volume. It was the loudest thing, no contest, the loudest thing I'd ever heard. The guys weren't there. It was just Ed, and Matt was there. And then as I was getting ready to split, Gary Sharon came up the driveway, and he got out of his car. And I remember he was really cool. And I just, I said hello, and I congratulated him. I said, "Hey, man, this is amazing." And he just said, "Yeah, it's mind blowing." He goes, "We have a lot of work to do, but we're on our way." And again, man, I didn't want to overstay my welcome. I've always tried to be really sensitive to stuff like that. "Hey, how you doing? Wow, this is amazing. I'll let you guys get back to it. I'm out."
Right. So you didn't get to play with the guitars or anything?
Nah.
Not like you didn't see my interview with Steve Brown. He got to play with the guitars.
Oh, I believe it, man. I believe it.
He remembered that you guys played with them at Sloss Furnace back in the day. He told me that on the video that we did an interview. Something about that. He said Robbie Neville was there. You remember that?
Wow. Now I remember seeing Robbie Neville before, and I remember Sloss Furnace. What was Steve playing with Robbie Neville?
No, he was with Trickster, remember?
Right. I know Steve was in Trickster, but we certainly never played a show with Trickster.
Okay. Trickster came to town. I did backline for him that night.
Oh, okay.
So I think he's got it a little twisted, but
he might have.
Yeah, but
those are good guys. Steve's a good guy. PJ, what a sweetheart, man.
He's a Van Halen freak too.
Oh yeah, man. He's got the direct path to all that EVH gear for sure.
Right. So I got one more thing to talk to you about, your guitar that you have. Let's do the guitar story.
Yeah, man. So the Ibanez.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'd have known we were going to really get into this, Jeff, I would have gotten a picture off the wall. It's upstairs to show you. But this is my Carina Ibanez Destroyer. I bought this guitar in 1980. I'm sorry. No. That would have been 82 or 83. I bought it for $300. The entire top of it had been painted white. So I got it. I striped it up with black electrical tape, just like your white Eddie Van Halen strap back there. And, the little band I had, we were covering Van Halen and the Scorpions and Judas Priest and all that kind of stuff. Well, shortly after that, I took it to my local music store and I said, hey, I want to route this out. Let's put a Floyd Rose in it. And me nor the guy that did the routing bothered to measure. And we would have found out quickly that the body of that, the depth of this body was too narrow to accommodate the hardware of a Floyd Rose. So in essence, I ruined the guitar. It had a giant hole in it, and so I basically just left it at the music store. I chalked it up to a lesson learned, and I didn't think anything else about it. Roll the clock forward to 2007. I'm playing in my country band, Whiskey Falls, and we're working with an acoustic guitar company called Crafter. They make amazing acoustic instruments. Well, the regional rep for Crafter Guitars was that same music store owner that I had the guitar routed out at. His son comes to the gig. His son came to the gig, Jeff, and he's got this long-ass guitar case with him. And he goes, man, I brought you something. So I opened the case, and there's that routed out guitar. It's been painted again. No pickups in it, no nothing. It's just the body. And I'm like, man, what? I said, is that my guitar? He goes, yeah, that's yours. He goes, we were cleaning out the store. We just couldn't bring ourselves to, throw it away. So I'm bringing it back to you. If you want to throw it away, you can. And wow. So man, I stuck it underneath the bus and brought it home and just chucked it in a closet somewhere. So about, I guess now it's probably been 8 months ago, I have a great friend in Birmingham, Jason Richardson. He does a lot of like high-end auto body painting. Like you've seen cars that have like aftermarket paint and like really like cool metallic, any color you can imagine, man. He's involved with all that. Well, he had painted some guitars. And Jason, every time I saw him, he's like, man, I want to do a guitar for you. Bring a Les Paul or bring something in here that you want to get painted. And, man, he's wanting me to paint something candy apple red with flames on it. It's like, that's not my style. That's not my vibe.
Right.
So I said one day, well, bro, I do have a project that I'm in need of, and I don't know if you feel like tackling it. I said, I'd like to get this guitar restored because I knew that the back of the, even back when I had it striped up, Jeff, you could see that gorgeous Carina on the back of the neck. Look at it, man. It's like bird's eye maple. It's beautiful.
Right. Beautiful.
It's like a work of art. So even when the other dude had painted it, it's like this weird dark maroon. thankfully you didn't mess up the neck. Anyway, Jason says, well, I have no idea how to do this, but give me the guitar. Let me work it out. So I played that gig in Huntsville a month ago.
Yep.
And Jason comes in the dressing room. I didn't know, but my drummer, Jared Pope, already knew what was up. It was all a surprise to me. So he comes walking in with this beauty.
Oh, God. Wow.
And I don't know if you can see this. You probably can with that ring light, but if you look and see, you can see the hole.
Right. Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, look at how he found a piece of wood that almost matches the stripe of the wood grain on the rest of the guitar.
That's crazy right there on the bottom.
It's the most insane thing I've ever seen. Now, there you can really see the hole.
Yeah.
And so, see, he had to fill, there's a hole here as well, kind of under the bridge. He had to fill that as well. He put Seymour Duncan, Pearly Gates pickups in there, which I love.
Yeah.
He did the extra super cool thing, and he put my name on the truss rod cover.
Awesome.
All right, here's the part you're going to love the most.
Okay.
Because as you know, and as any Van Halen fan knows, that Eddie played an Ibanez Destroyer on the first two records, right?
Right, and it became this guy over here.
Right, the first two records, he played an Ibanez Destroyer on the songs that did not have a tremolo on it. So as a tribute to Ed, on his own volition, man, my buddy Jason, he didn't ask, he just did it. Right here on the back of the neck, look what he put on there.
Oh, man, that's killer. Long live the king. That's killer, man. Awesome.
It's one of the most amazing gifts anyone has ever given me, man, and I'm just so humbled by it, and I'm grateful to Jason, and it just says a lot about the kind of guy he is, and I'm really thrilled about that guitar, man. It plays incredible, it sounds amazing, and
wow, those things are they're so sought after now.
They are, man. Listen, he did a lot of homework. He looked up the serial number. That's a 1976, and so I just feel really lucky, man, to have two amazing Explorers. I got that Destroyer, and then I got my Gibson Explorer, and
Carina.
And then the last humorous thing about that story, the first person I sent a picture of this guitar to was Ricky Medlock from Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Well, he's a Carina guy too. He plays a Carina Explorer.
Yeah, he's got several, but he told me he has 3 Ibanez Destroyers.
Really?
Yeah.
Same era.
He plays, same era. The one he plays now in Skynyrd is kind of a custom job. It's made by, a custom builder. It's not a Gibson or an Ibanez. But anyway, the crazy paths our lives take, man.
That's amazing. So one more thing before we go, thinking about Eddie and his passing, man, the day that he passed, I woke up, I saw Wolfie's Instagram. That was the first thing I saw, was him announcing this. Where were you, and how did it hit you?
I was in the car with my son. We were driving to Milledgeville, Georgia to see my dad. And my wife called me and told me. And as so many of us did, we all knew that Ed was in a bad way, that the cancer had really consumed his body and that it was really just a matter of time. But none of us really thought it would come as quickly as it did. But man, that's the thing about cancer. It's like, it's such a ravaging disease. I just hope for him that he didn't suffer any longer than he did. It's like, it's what's so tough about going out that way, man. Like, it's easier on your family because they have more time to say goodbye and to get your affairs in order, but it's tough on the individual that's suffering with it. So,
yeah.
But yeah, man, it was a moment I had with my son, Gabriel. I was able to talk to him a little about Van Halen and just, how much it meant to me. So we listened immediately to Van Halen 1 and, like I say, kind of paid our own tribute to him. And
I guess you probably got tons of messages like I did from people all over the place.
Oh man, look, that's what's so great about the love the world has for Edward. There's a community of us, man. There are millions of us that love him. And that's how we've all been able to grieve and mourn his passing. We've been able, conversations just like this, man. I appreciate you having me on today, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man. That's, the whole intent I had with this Van Halen Stories was to get to the, some of these great things about Eddie that I met Eddie, and you once told me, and I'll close with this, but you once told me when I asked you, what was it like to hang out with Eddie? I was that, that kid like you were going, what was it like? And he said, man, he's just a regular guy. And I went, you know what I said to you? I said, dude, that's not a regular guy. That's the guy that played guitar in Van Halen 1. That was down in that place in Jasper you played one night with the Welfare.
Yeah, man.
And, but when I met him, I got that instant warm vibe that you talked about.
Yeah, man. He was a legend, man. He was an innovator, a legend. Absolutely, rightfully deserves a place on the Mount Rushmore of the greatest of all time. You can put whoever else you want in those other 3 slots, but Eddie Van Halen's on there. No debate, no discussion necessary. He's up there.
No doubt about it, man. I appreciate it, brother. And I knew I had to do this with you, right off the bat. I had to get with you because you were the man with the Van Halen stuff. Well, we all looked up to you in town, and you were the guy that made it to that arena and got to open for Van Halen, man. That was like, I was kind of in a bad place at that point, 95. I was just not feeling where I could be musically. And I was like, you know what? I don't give a crap. I'm going to see Damon do this. I am going to go sit in the upper deck and watch this happen by myself.
Jeff. Well, man, listen, brother, it's always great to see you and to talk to you. And
you too, man.
I appreciate your friendship all these years, and good luck to you and your lovely better half.
Yeah, I told her. So I said, hey. She said, hey.
For sure, man. And listen, I'll see you soon. Good luck with everything. Congrats on all your success, man, with your podcast. This is awesome.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, buddy.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.